Good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 3 of S6G8 and we are tasked to do a report of freedom as foundation for moral acts. We have four contents that we're going to talk about, and first is freedom and morals. Second is Kant's morality and freedom. Third is human acts versus acts of human, and the last one will be free will and true freedom. But first, let's talk about freedom and morals. So, what is freedom? Freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint, the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved, or the act of independence. To me, freedom is the ability to make choices and live life in a way that is authentic to oneself, without interference or coercion from others. It is the power to determine one's own actions, thoughts, and decisions, and to be able to pursue one's own goals and desires. Freedom also implies the absence of constraint or limitation, and the ability to live life in a way that is open and uninhibited.
There are different types of freedom. First, freedom to be alive. This means that nobody, including the government, can try to end your life. It also means that the government should take appropriate measures to safeguard by making laws to protect, and in some circumstances, by taking steps to protect your life is at risk. Freedom of association. The freedom to organize into groups based on common interest and the right of peaceful assembly. For example, the right to form a political organization and to protest in a peaceful way. Freedom of speech. The freedom to communicate opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation, censorship, or legal sanction. Freedom from bondage and slavery. It means that prohibits people being held in conditions in which the powers attaching the right of ownership are exercised. Freedom to choose one's state in life. Every human being has the right to choose their own path for their life. Freedom to press. The right to report news or circulate opinion without censorship from the government. And lastly, freedom of religion. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief and freedom, either alone or in community, with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in worship, teaching, practice, and observance.
So, what is moral? Moral concerned with the principle of right and wrong behavior and the goodness or badness of human character. A person's standards of behavior or beliefs concerning what is and is not acceptable for them to do. So moral refers to the norms which distinction between morally right and morally wrong, or acceptable and unacceptable actions set by the society according to our human behavior. Examples of morality like we should be honest all the time, always forgive others, and also be responsible. Why freedom became the foundation of moral acts? We people have its own freedom, and there is no limits unto it. By basing the freedom to moral act as a main reason, it gives it a limit to know what would be the right or wrong decision to be made. Freedom is human's greatest quality, and it is a reflection of our Creator. Freedom is the power rooted in the reason and will to act or not to act, to do this or that, and so to perform deliberate actions on one's own responsibility. Every action you choose further determines our character. So the reason why freedom became the foundation of moral acts is because freedom is being able to make your own decisions and getting done. We are rational beings capable of making our own decisions and directing our own lives. Because everyone is entitled to at least a basic level of human dignity. That's why we have the right to be free.
So next is making moral choice is necessary consequence for being free, a consequence of being a person. Because human person has freedom, he or she has a choice and so he is responsible for the consequences of his and her choice. We all know that we human being has freedom to make our own choices, but we need to be responsible of any choice we make for we all know that consequences is always there. It's either bad or good. The lower forms of animals have no choice since they are bound by instinct and so cannot be held responsible for their behavior. Owning a moral standard means internalizing them, making them part of your conviction. Internalized or embodied moral standards are being followed with or without anyone telling you. Moral standards are those concerned with or relating to human behavior, especially the distinction between good and bad behavior. Moral standard in, involves the rules people have about the kinds of actions they believe are morally right or wrong. Most
Reasons why moral act is established is that for the people to use their freedom in a way that they won't harm anyone, for to not abuse their freedom and to give a limitation to it. Because moral reasoning is the determination of whether actions are right or wrong. Moral reasoning is the study of how people think about right and wrong and how they acquire and apply moral rules because because we create our own definition of morality through our interactions the people around us. The ideas about what is and what is not moral are guided by our unique human reasoning and intelligence and not just by our feelings or gut reactions.
Kant's morality and freedom. When morality is our end, nothing can hinder us from attaining satisfaction. We are self sufficient and free since moral goodness is created by us, hence is in our power. Duty versus inclination. Immanuel Kant made a study of whether inclination is of the highest moral worth and objected to Aristotle's analysis, reasoning that it is the person who acts from the motive of duty in the teeth of contrary inclination who shows an especially high degree of moral worth. Categorical versus hypothetical reason. Categorical imperatives specify actions we ought to take regardless of whether doing so would enable us to get anything we want. An example of a categorical imperative might be keep your promises. Hypothetical imperatives identify actions we ought to take but only if we have some particular goal. Autonomy versus heteronomy freedom. Autonomy is the idea that one governs their morality and decisions, and heteronomy follows the idea that an individual is governed by their cultural and spiritual influences.
Human acts versus acts of human. Human acts are actions done intentionally, free, and deliberately of a person. These are actions that a man properly masters, for he does them with full knowledge of his own will. All human acts are subjected to morality. act of human, natural and voluntary actions, act of act of person without the proper use of reason, actions which are performed without the intervention of the intellect and the free will.
Determine if it's human act or acts of human. Jumping into the river to save a person drowning without knowing to swim or not. It is a human act. Act of human. Before jumping into the river, he judges his ability to swim and save if not asks right person to do it. Human act.
So, free will and true freedom. So, what is free will? Free will describes our capacity to make choices that are genuinely our own. With free will comes moral responsibility, our ownership of our good and bad deeds. That ownership indicates that if we make a choice that is good, we deserve the resulting reward. So meaning, kanang ni-decide ka to help na without any expectation na maakay ma-receive na reward. That's free will. Next.
Requirement of true freedom. True freedom is independent. Upon the truth, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. True freedom is oriented toward the good. True freedom requires responsibility. So, freedom was our looking for the freedom to ourselves and express ourselves. One way the world tells us we can be free is to rid ourselves from laws, commitments, and boundaries. Essentially, anything that makes us feel trapped. If you are unhappy in your job, with a new one. So the example of true freedom is true freedom is without a matter of doing what you want without restraint, but cultivating the right ones and living in obedience to God's will. In other words, freedom results when our wants to align with God's will.
And that is our report about freedom. This is Kimuel Mendoza once again from Group 3. Thank you for listening.